Hey, welcome to the Social 333 podcast. I'm your host, Chris Bentley. Today, my guest is Jim Carlough. Jim, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Chris. I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. Tell the audience a little bit about yourself and what you got going on.
So I have been in the healthcare industry my entire life, beginning in 1983, mostly in leadership. And for the last 25 years, I focused a lot of time mentoring people. And I noticed consistently some things that we do wrong in this country and around the world. And that is when it comes time to put somebody in a management position, we take our top technical person who's the most successful in an area and put them in charge, and we don't give them a roadmap. We just say, have at it. And then we wonder why our attrition rates are so low. So SHRM came out with a listing not long ago about the top reasons people leave their job. The number one reason, lack of career advancement, 16%. Lack of job security, 13%. Culture, 11%. Management issues, 10%. Lack of recognition, 9%. Work environment, 8%. Role clarity, 7%. You know what that all points to? A leadership problem. And it's something that can be fixed. And the cost to replace an employee is 200% of the cost the employee that just walked out the door. So if you think about it, a 500-person company, 10 people walk out the door, average salary of $80,000 plus benefits, let's round it to $100,000. That's $10 million that they lose off the bottom line by letting people walk out the door.
I wanted to talk to you about this because let me get into your book. I'm sorry. So this is your book, 6 Pillars of Effective Leadership, a Roadmap to Success. And that's your book, which is fantastic. Thank you for the gift. Something that I wanted to talk about was the leaders aren't born, they're developed. So I worked at a couple of different corporate jobs in between my entrepreneurial journey when I needed money. But what I always ran into was they always promoted the people that they thought, like you said, were the best at technical or best at sales or best at whatever. And they were very good at doing their job, which was at the time, like, let's say just MoneyGram, right? They were very good at being an analyst. Very good. Like one of the best. And then they get put into a managerial role where they have to manage other people. Many of the people that I worked with at the time were, ex-military. And they're used to, either taking orders or, giving out orders. So it wasn't very difficult. The issue was that they're very good at their role and not very good at being a leader, right? And somebody like myself, which I know a lot of people don't agree, but I believe that leaders are born. And I believe that because I will step onto the battlefield first and I'll step off the battlefield last. Like everybody goes home, right? Like I'll stay there the whole time. I have no problem with that. But when you get into someone that's like my sister, for example, that gets pushed into a higher role, let's say a CFO role, but she's a master CPA and is just absolutely amazing when it comes to accounting. But then dealing with personalities, dealing with calls and meetings and answering to the board and doing that kind of stuff, she fails at it, to be really nice about it. And it's my sister, right? So talk to me about the leadership and what companies can do differently, because usually what ends up happening is somebody like my sister that gets into a bigger role realizes that, hey, leadership isn't me, can't read people, can't determine what this person needs, and their needs are important, but are different from that person because that person isn't interested in trophies. That person's interested in money or PTO or family time, whatever it is, versus you may be really interested in the trophy, right? It could be like a lot of different things. And it's just managing other people while continuing to keep up the same performance that you had.
From a technical perspective, correct. She's excellent in that regard, but nobody gave her a roadmap about the emotional intelligence side and dealing with people. So let me go back first to your first question that you asked about leaders being born versus being developed. The reason I truly believe that they're developed is it's an evolutionary process. As the world changes, leadership changes. When I entered the workforce in the early 80s, it was still much authoritarian, much like the military, whereas today it's much more collaborative. So it has to evolve. The other reason I say that they're developed is if we believe that it's genetically possible to be born with a gene that says that you're a leader, why am I leading organizations and why have I when my dad was a carpenter, his dad was a mason, and my great-grandfather was a chicken farmer?
Wow.
There's no C-suite in that.
Right.
None whatsoever. So mine's entirely the result of intentional development.
Yeah, I can see that now. I think the reason why I am such a great leader is because I failed so many small companies. Like I was the kid that raked leaves. I was the kid that washed people's cars. Like I was the people that knocked on their door and like, did all those, odd job stuff to make money. And I believed in myself more than anybody. And then I started to scale it. Obviously, I'd bring a friend or something and we'd wash cars all day long, right? And I think those failures created the leadership.
I believe that.
Talk to me about some of the barriers you see that are around with building leaders or building high performance teams, because I'm in sales. Like, what are some of the barriers that you see that, outside of just plucking people out of, their role and sticking them into leadership? Like, what are some of the barriers you see for any of these teams to be successful?
I think the first barrier is a lot of corporations have done away with their internal training programs. As budgets have gotten leaner and tighter, what's the first thing that goes away? And because of that, then we do very poor succession planning for when Bill or Sally leave, who's going to replace them. And then when you do get in that position and you're faced to choose somebody to pick up that role, how do you choose the right person if you don't have a way to measure them? And in that, we create this crater. And we have to find a way to be able to develop people in such a way that they have a framework to follow so that they can step into a position and be successful. Because what we're doing is setting them up for failure. And the numbers show that.
Yeah, there is no training. Everywhere I've been, it's been more of, Johnny did this and he did that really well. And he was a good manager. You should do the same thing as Johnny. And then they would be like, well, what did Johnny do? Well, we really don't know. But he came out with a spreadsheet that was really good. And like, the board of directors really liked that. So then they would be scrambling, trying to find this person's macros for this Excel spreadsheet. And the person that's driving, that particular spreadsheet, let's just say myself, I'd be like, I don't know what the hell Johnny was talking about. And it leaves a really bad, not only the succession plan, but it's just a really bad way to run a business where you just kind of do a next person up kind of situation, but you're not doing any training to get that next person up.
Correct. And
go ahead.
And a lot of times an HR training person will bring in somebody to teach a theory or to teach a habit to learn. Nobody's thinking about the framework of what they need to work within. And the things that I talk about, the 6 pillars, they don't teach at Wharton. They don't teach at Harvard. Nobody gives you a certificate in stability or humor. And so if you don't give them the knowledge of how to become that, you have set them up for failure because they have to understand the human side of this, or they're never going to be successful leading teams, and the teams will never believe them.
That's the crazy thing about me is that a lot of people just don't believe that, I have this company or multiple companies that all these people work for me and like they have no issue working for me. And they, for the ones that do work with me, I believe that, you know, I wouldn't say they die on their sword, but they would definitely, it's a team sport. You know what I mean? Like I would pick them up if they were down. They would pick me up if I was down. Like it's just that's kind of how we're just a very tight, even though we're a loose organization. They're all entrepreneurs like me, sales agents. They're not tied to anything. They can walk out the door anytime. But I was trying to instill that in the company that I was working at, where we have a goal. We have to meet a certain quota. It's kind of like when I was working on the government, and we have a certain quota. We have to meet it, and as a team, like we have to do these numbers. And with that, not only is there a lot of integrity, but there's a lot of competition and camaraderie, and we're doing it together kind of deal. It's a team situation, and it was very hard to instill at the company because they just want to get their paycheck, or they just want to do their job and go home and see their loved ones or whatever it is.
It's really hard, but you said the magic word, integrity. If you don't have integrity as a leader, you won't have a team that will follow you into battle. You won't have a team that'll believe in you, and you won't have an individual that believes they have a career there. So you keyed on the number one principle in the book that I say is non-negotiable is integrity. And let me tell you how I learned that. In 1983, I graduated college. That same year, I ran for public office in the town I grew up in.
Wow.
And won.
Wow, that's awesome.
22 years old.
Wow.
A couple weeks after the election, wasn't even sworn in yet, the city manager asked me to come in and talk to him. Sat down and talked to him, and then him and hawed, and he says, I'm going to ask you to do me a favor. Now, here I am, not even sworn in yet, and I'm getting my first political favor I have to give, right? But it wasn't that at all. What he said to me is something that has steered my entire life. He said, what I'd like to ask you to do is every night when you put your head on the pillow and before you close your eyes, I want you to ask yourself one question. Have I done anything today for my own personal self-benefit that was at the expense of another individual, group of individuals, or organization? And then he went on and said, if you answer yes to that question, you need to immediately do two things. Number one, figure out how to unwind it. And number two, figure out how to never do it again. Do you know I've asked myself that question ever since November 1983, every night.
Wow.
And I've never said yes.
That's good. I'm trying to think of what I do, and that's maybe like a key that somebody else can use. Really, it's just, for me, I just treat people the way I want to be treated. And whether that be, I do a personal deal and it's, they get their money, right? That's just one of the perks of the job, right? Like if they do their own deal, I just don't look at the commission. I just give it to them, just kind of a benefit. Or, they're having a hard time with the client, and I step in and resolve it. Or I guess just always being there.
It's being there, and what you're demonstrating is you're showing empathy and compassion. And those are two very difficult things. They're also two of my pillars. It's very difficult to learn compassion or empathy. It takes time and experience. And you also mentioned earlier why your team follows you. They follow you because of the integrity. Then they know you have their back, the empathy, and they know you're going to take care of them, compassion. You're halfway through the book. You're
Wow.
halfway through the framework and you didn't even know it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not rocket science. I mean, it's not rocket science, but nobody teaches it.
Yeah. Like my sister, I hate to put this in public, but I'm listening to her calls. She was with me when I had some surgery, and I was listening to her calls, and she would say something, and she was unable to understand what the other person's reaction is. And this was remote, but needless to say, she couldn't probably do it if it was face to face anyway. But it would be a situation very simple. Like it'd be like, oh, you're telling me, hey, Chris, like this costs X amount of dollars, right? Whatever it is. And I don't want to get too deep into it, but whatever the amount of money it is. And I have a couple different options as a person. I could say, oh, wow, that's expensive. Or I could say, oh, well, that's not that expensive. Or I could just be like, okay, and on to my next train of thought. Well, she went and said, oh, wow, that's really expensive. And the person started laughing because, well, it wasn't that expensive. So that person now thinks that you think, or I think, let's just put it back, right? They think that if I say to you, hey, Jim, yeah, you know that this book here, it's real expensive. And then you kind of in your head say, well, you know, I can go out on Amazon and buy it anytime. And you're looking at me like, wow, man, like you think that's expensive? Like, what else do you think is expensive, right? And it ruins that teamwork versus I could have just been like, oh, okay, and on to my next thing versus now that person thinks differently of me. And a lot of it is because it's remote, you can't see the physical part of it, right? So if I were to be like, wow, that's really expensive, and I said it in a kind of joyful, like playful mood, then you would kind of be like, oh yeah, Chris is just like, you know, clowning around a little bit. But when you get into remote, you can't really tell.
Unless you're on the Zoom.
Right.
When you're on a Zoom call, you can see that emotion. And that's one of the things, and again, you said it earlier, as a leader, you have to be able to tell when somebody is not there that day. In other words, if you walked in and you're usually bright, smile, walking in with your cup of coffee, and you come in with your coffee but no smile, as a leader, you need to figure out what's gone on in Chris's life that day and how do we fix it? Because otherwise, Chris is going to have a terrible day, and that means we're going to lose that productivity, or we're not going to be able to help him out. And if I was your manager, I'm responsible for that, and I have to pick that up.
Or you might lose me completely.
Or you might lose you completely. Absolutely correct.
Talk to me about, you know, we kind of touched on it a little bit, but just kind of more of like the emotion side of it, because I think that's really what plays out a lot. You know, I have a lot of agents that are very emotional. You know, they'll get a call when somebody says no, or they get a call where somebody, you know, says maybe something negative, or, you know, they'll do a social media post and somebody says something negative and ruins their whole day. I get other people that, they could care less about that. Maybe their day gets ruined because they're in a relationship where their spouse is, you know, they have a lot of friction. It could be a lot of different things. Maybe it could be, you know, sales are down for them. They're not making the money that they used to make. How hard is that to teach someone like my sister or something like that? Is it through training, or is it through just trial and error and just going through people? Because that's kind of how corporate is right now.
It's very much like how corporate is right now. Yeah, it can be taught, but it has to be experienced. And you don't, I can remember I was on a podcast one time and somebody asked me this question: is your leadership style the same today as it was when you got your first management job? And I said, no. My first management job, I was horrible. I did everything wrong. And then I realized that in order to be an effective leader, I had to be an effective communicator. I had to be an effective listener, an active listener, and really understanding what the people were saying and what they were trying to get across. Those are not skills that are easily taught, but are experienced. And in the book, I give examples of things you can do to start to learn how to do them. Now, knowing that I couldn't do that when I first got in the workforce.
Right.
I'll tell you an experience that I had when I worked for a local technology company. We made claim software systems for health insurers. We had a product line that was old green screen technology. So I'm dating myself a bit. And I had a team of 25 people, and I had to tell them their job was going away. But their job wasn't going away that day. It would take us 18 to 36 months to convert the 36 customers we had on that platform over to the new Windows technology. And I struggled with what to tell them because I had to be able to keep people there to support the customers we had, or we lose them to the competition. And we didn't want that. So I wrestled with it, and I went into a meeting with all of them at the same time, and I made them 3 promises. Promise number 1, you will all get the maximum amount of notice that I can physically possibly give you. In other words, if we know it takes 12 months to install the new platform, and we know they're starting today on January 1, we know that they're going to go live next January 1. You have 12 months notice before your job goes away. Second promise, if you want to learn the new technologies, I'll make the technology training available to you during the workday at our expense so that when the time comes, you can flip over into that department. Promise number 3, if you don't want to work here any longer and you want help finding job on the outside, I will personally help you choose a job that fits you as well as your financial needs for your family. Those 3 things. An amazing thing happened. Number 1, the first thing that happened is I accomplished my goal. Nobody left early.
Nice.
Secondly, most of them stayed with the company. About 6 to 8 months into this process, I get a call from HR, and they want to come and visit me. And they walked in. I never liked it when HR called and said, "You need to come and see you." But my boss wasn't with them, and they didn't have an empty box. So I felt pretty good. They sat down, and they said, we want to talk to you about the recent employee satisfaction survey. Now, I had multiple teams at this company, and so this is just one of the teams. And I said, uh-oh, what's the problem? And he said, well, we want to talk about the team you have out in California, which was this software team. And I said, how bad is it? And they said, well, that's what we're trying to understand. They're the happiest employees in the company. We have 20,000 employees, and those 25 are the happiest.
Wow.
And they're losing their job. What are you doing? And when I told them what I did and how I struggled with it all, that actually became the policy for how to take care of people when you're going to be planning to RIF them. Never expected that to happen.
Yeah, that goes into the caring thing that we talked about earlier, where people understand that, hey, look, like I have you, I have your back, you know, we have a mission. This is the mission, much like special ops or whatever it is. Like, this is the mission. We're going to do this at this time and be finished at this time. And when we're done, like, I'll be the last one on the plane or the last one on the chopper or whatever it is. And people just really, you know, just want that. You know, they want the person to carry the flag, be at the front of the spear, and just, you know, I'm here with you. I'll be fighting where.
And they want the stable manager.
Right.
The manager that reacts the same way regardless of the situation. So it doesn't mean that if the trash can's on fire that I have a right to jump up and scream and scare the bejeebies out of everybody. They expect me to be calm and to help get them through the situation.
I think a lot of it too is I would always just find things funny. Like my friend showed up without his work laptop, and it takes him like an hour to get to work, and he was like, it's Monday and I forgot my laptop, and I've been working all weekend, like, you know, on a project or whatever, and I forgot my laptop. And the guy was pretty funny, you know, and just it's like, okay, well, you know, see you tomorrow, work from home, you know. And I could have been like, oh, you know, but, you know, it's kind of funny. Now, if he continues to not bring his laptop, then obviously it wouldn't be funny. But sometimes you have to have just a human.
You have to be human.
Yeah.
And so, one of the characteristics I have is humor. And a lot of people question that. And for me, humor is not being a comedian at the water cooler at
Right.
10 a.m. It's using humor in such a way to diffuse a situation, change the subject, get people refocused, or whatever. But in today's hypersensitive world, I can't make a comment about your sweatshirt,
Right.
right? So in my case, it's usually self-deprecating humor because I've done a lot of stupid things in my life that I can laugh at now. But it's amazing, those stories humanize myself with my team.
Mm-hmm.
And then they realize he's no different than I am.
It's the same thing with that person that lost it or didn't bring the laptop. Oh, yeah, like Chris is pretty cool. Like he didn't really get on me about this. I'll go ahead at home, even though it's going to take me another hour, and finish up this project for him, even if it takes me
Extra
outside of
time.
business hours and stuff like that. One thing that I wanted to talk about before we get going is Gen Z, millennials, kids of this era, or I should say working adults of this area, all right? AI, a lot of stuff's like, and I really hate to be rude, but I've seen a lot of people that are older not want to hire older. I've seen a lot of people that are, I consider myself old. I love younger people because they're very tech savvy and they pick up things very, very quickly. And I think like my sister is obviously a lot older than me. She's my oldest sister. And I think a lot of times that's ruined a lot of job opportunities that she would have had because of her age, when her age is actually a benefit to the company because she's experienced a lot with accounting and going back many, many, many years, right? So what do you think about hiring these young folks that are going to be adults coming into the workforce? Is it a plus for you? Is it a minus? Is it a halfway, especially with AI coming?
It's interesting. So I read an article just yesterday with regard to the Gen Zers of the world who are already in the workplace. And they're sensing that most of them don't want to take manager jobs or leadership roles. So that's the first problem we have to get over. And I think having good leaders as mentors will help them see the water's warm, it's okay to jump in. And they need strong mentors. And I talk about that a lot in the book as well. So I see the opportunity for them to be able to develop that. AI, it's interesting. AI is going to change a lot of things, but it's never going to replace managers or leaders. AI can't detect when you're having a bad day. AI can't decipher your emotional, status for today. And there's so many other things that AI can do. So there will be some impact, but what AI is going to do is help us do things faster and with less of our brain and more of the computer's brain. And it may have some small impact on people, but it definitely will not impact leadership. It'll change the way we lead, but it's not going to change leadership as we know it.
Jim, if somebody wanted to get in touch with you, want to ask you about your book, want to ask you more leadership questions like I have, where would they find you?
They can find me on the internet, jimcarlough.com, JIMCARLOUGH.com. They can find me on social media, LinkedIn as well. Also have some coaching programs being launched in January, both for corporations as well as individuals, to help instill the framework that we've been talking about. So there's an opportunity for your sister to indulge in that and go forward, and glad to help her.
Awesome. Jim, appreciate you being on the show.
Thank you, sir.